these two boxes of Rallyman are jam-packed with possibilities, and it's my intention to highlight all of the interesting things you can do with them. This is Shakedown. In this Shakedown, we're going to increase the difficulty of our solo rallies a little with the addition of a rolling roadblock. The catch? We haven't written the rules for them yet.
60, keep right into left 6. 80, gear right.
You're tearing through the Finnish countryside when you catch sight of another rally car up ahead. It doesn't always happen in a rally, but when it does, you need to hope for a clear overtaking opportunity, or at least for that driver to know that they're beaten and pull aside to let you through. Most games don't bother with this element of single player rallying, and that includes Rallyman, but we've got some ideas to change that, so let's have a look at them. As you've already seen a few times, we could easily add other cars into the stage using Dr. Worm's NPCs, and while they give you plenty of variability in terms of difficulty and driver traits, you're kind of playing a multiplayer game if you choose to make use of them. There's no problem in doing that, of course, and it's a great way to learn how to play, but what I think we need instead is the possibility of a car ahead, rather than the certainty of one. So let's think of a new set of rules for that possibility. First of all, it needs to be simple. Not quite forgettable, but we need to focus our attention on our car, not on this potential obstacle. To me, that means automatic movement. So let's say it moves 3 spaces each turn. We don't want it to start 3 spaces ahead of us though, that's a little too soon and we're guaranteed to encounter it. How about we roll all of the gear dice available to our car class, except for gear 1, line them up in order and look for hazards. The first die that shows a hazard is the tile on which the car spawns. The start line will always be tile 1, and we know the car isn't going to spawn there because we're not rolling the gear 1 die. The car will spawn on the second tile if our gear 2 die rolled a hazard symbol, or on the third tile if our gear 3 had the first hazard symbol, and so on. If we've rolled all the gear dice and not got any hazards, then the car will spawn on the next tile, which will be either the 5th, 6th or 7th tile of the stage, depending on your car class. So once we know where it starts and how far it moves, we need to ask how exactly it will move through those 3 spaces each turn. Usually if you encounter a car on a stage, it's because it's had a problem, so it's likely to not be moving fast or perhaps even straight. Again, we want a simple to use system with minimal input from us, so let's say that this car is just limping to the finish line. It won't be drifting and sliding, it won't be jumping, and it won't take shortcuts. That means we won't have to worry about track elements at all, and we can just count 3 simple spaces each turn. Does the car prefer the inside or outside lane? The best part of making up rules is that you can pick whatever you want and change it if it doesn't work. So let's say it will stick to the inside lane for now. The final element for this car is the most important for us when it comes to overtaking it, and that is its speed. The simplest I can think of is that it has a constant speed of half its maximum gear rounded down. So any R4 or R5 car you encounter will be in gear 2, and any R6 car in gear 3. They'll ignore speed limits as well, because the less we have to think about, the better. To recap then, our potential opponent this race will spawn on a tile determined by rolling all of our gear dice except for gear 1 and looking for the first die to show a hazard symbol, else it'll spawn on the next tile after. Before we take our turn, move this car 3 spaces, ignoring drifts, slides, jumps and shortcuts, ending in the inside lane in gear 2, as our opponent will be in an R5 class car. And that's that. It may well finish the stage before us and not be a problem, or we might catch up to it in the worst possible place and have a headache working out how to overtake it safely. What matters is that this is a simple system that adds a little flavour to our solo games. If it doesn't do that, then it's back to the drawing board to come up with something else. We'll be testing it out on the Kakaristo stage, the final part of Rally Finland by Elias Pekari, which you can find on the Rallyman Track and Roadblocks website. And we'll be driving the red R5 on standard gravel tyres. That's it, let's dive right in. So a straightforward rally ahead of us, but we need to determine the starting tile for our rolling roadblock. We're going to roll all of our gear dice except for gear 1. The first hazard is on dice number 5, so we go to tile number 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we place our rolling roadblock on the first space on the inside lane. That's our game set up, so we may well catch up to this roadblock soon enough. First, before our turn, it has to move 3 simple spaces, which it does, and then we can get straight into our plans to try and catch it up. I would like to have made a bit more progress than that at the start of my turn, so what we're going to do instead is drift into gear 5 to try to work the most amount of dice into our run to get us the most amount of seconds. Flat out, as always, I like to start with a risky move. That gets us 5 focus tokens, 5 second tokens. Puts us in here in gear 5. Start of the next turn, the roadblock moves 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3, except it wants the inside lane, so it wants that space. And we have some drifting to do. I probably should have checked how many breaks I had before I went into that corner so quick, but we do have enough to get around it. We are going to drop to 2, boost up to 4, and come out in gear 5. I'm going to roll those one by one. There's a hazard on the brake. Coasting around the corner is good. 2 is good. Boost up to 4 is good. And the 5 was our second hazard. But we made it around that first corner, no problems. And we are into third round already. Our roadblock continues moving, and so do we. We would like to carry on in gear 5. If we drop to 4, break down to 2, come out in 3, and then boost up into 5th. I think that's the best use of our dice. I was pretty good on the last turn. Shall I go flat out on this one? I'm going to risk it. Let's see what we can generate. That's a good set of dice. That gets us 6 more seconds to work with. And it puts us all the way into this space in 5th gear. Another 15 seconds on the clock. Another turn goes by. Our rolling roadblock moves to this tile. Will we catch up to it before the end of the race? Who knows? We have a low speed corner coming up. I need to be in gear 3 by the time I get there, so we can't coast quite so soon. Let's put ourselves 1. We need to break down to 1 at some point. We go 2 with a break, and then 4, and then 5, and then we'll boost out of the corner in 3. I think that's the best that we can manage, and I've got loads of seconds to spend, so I'll go one by one on this roll. 5 is good, 4 is our first hazard, break 2 is good, the 1 is good, the 3 is our second hazard. I feel comfortable rolling these coast die, however, and the final one is good, so we end in this space in 3rd gear. Bit of a slowdown, but with a low speed hairpin, that's what happens. Roadblock is going to move another 3 spaces. Once the inside, so we'll go to that space. And then we are in gear 3, and I think we can just speed our way up through the gears. Let's coast 2, 3, 4, 5. That puts us right on the bumper of the roadblock. We'll probably overtake that on the next turn then. I'm not going to roll those flat out. I'm going to make sure I get there. 1 is good, coast is good, second coast is good, gear 2 is good, 3 is a hazard, 4 is good, could have gone flat out, the 5 is good as well, and we end turn number 5 in 5th gear. The rolling roadblock is right ahead of us. It moves 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3. It prefers the inside lane, so we will have to overtake it on this turn, but that is certainly doable. Let us think carefully, because we want to try and get distance so that we don't have to overtake it a second time, if at all possible. I wonder if we can get over that jump there. So let's plan a move that does that. We have to be in at least gear 2 to overtake our NPC, our roadblock. So we'll do that. Now we're in gear 5, so we can't brake all the way down to a low gear. We can at best start in 3. And then that would coast through. We can overtake in 2 and then boost up to 4 and then take the jump in gear 5. I think that is the plan for this turn. Brake has a hazard. The coast is good. Coast is good. We are good to overtake. The 4 and the boost is good, and I'm going to pay for this jump because I don't want to crash. Although it's in the same gear, so it doesn't matter actually, and we can keep that. A good job, because it was a hazard. We can keep that extra second token and not need to use it on track, so that we can keep our time down. Would have liked to have gone flat out to generate some more, but that's what happens. We're in gear 5 as planned. Our rolling roadblock moves 3 places, and we are now in the final stretches, coming up to a slow corner as well. Now, at this point, I think we should swap over to the leader coast dice. I haven't specified whether we take the lead if we overtake a rolling roadblock, but it feels thematic to do so. So we will be rolling the orange leader dice from here on out. The finish line isn't too far away, however, so we should be able to get around with no problems. We do have a pool of second tokens as well. So let's try to get some speed out of this. Let's drop to 4, coast into the corner. We'll take the drift spaces on the outside, come out in 3, and we'll boost up to 5 towards the finish line. We'll roll these 1 by 1. 4 is good. First coast is a hazard. There is a hazard on the brake as well, so we're going to have to think about rolling these. It will cost 10 focus, pretty much all of our focus, to pay for those dice. So let's risk rolling a coast. We're in gear 2, that's fine. Gear 3, I wouldn't want to crash in gear 3. It's a good job I haven't. And I will chicken out and pay for these 2 dice for 3 seconds worth of time. That puts us into this space in gear 5. And we are good to finish this race. We move the rolling roadblock out of habit, if nothing else. And then we are going to coast over the line in 5th gear. At least that is my plan. We'll go flat out to get 4 seconds back on the clock. 2 hazards, so we didn't cross our loss of control, and we've finished the stage in gear 5. Let us count up the time that is taken. Our rolling roadblock didn't cause us too many problems. We managed to overtake it around here in a nice high-speed corner. So that will do wonders for our time, but we did have something to think about during our run. We are currently at 2 minutes and 15. We can reduce that to 2 minutes and 5. 2 minutes and 3 is our final stage time for this Kakaristo run by Elias, and I encourage you to see if you can do better, especially against our rolling roadblock. Were our rolling roadblock rules a success? I think we'll need more than just the one rally stage to find out, but they certainly were as simple as we hoped they would be. Should you become the leader after any overtake and start rolling leader dice instead? As you might have guessed, having decided in the middle of the run, I think you should, as it adds another thing to think about if and when it happens. But you can easily make the argument that overtaking is enough of a challenge as it is, especially if the spawn tile wasn't as generous for you as it was for me. Another question is whether the rolling roadblock can overtake you back. Thematically, probably not, unless you crash off the stage right after you've overtaken it perhaps. I'll leave that for you to decide, but I'm erring towards no. It is, after all, simpler to ignore it completely once you've dealt with it. And it really is that easy to make up some rules and change how you do things in Rallyman, and I look forward to seeing what you can come up with yourselves. It may well feature in a future Shakedown.